Article 21. Um, Article 21, so I will give the brief explanation na lang. Here is no person should unjustly enrich himself at the expense of another. It ought to be noted, however, that when a property is obtained by virtue of a final judgment of a court, Article 22 cannot apply. Like for example, A and B is sum of money evidenced by promissory note. At maturity, A paid and a receipt was given him. When the latter on, he was again asked to pay. He could not find the receipt, so to avoid trouble, he paid again. Subsequently, he found the missing receipt. Can he now get back what he had intentionally but unwillingly paid? The answer is yes. In a view of Article 22, which incidentally treats of an actions and rem verso, B. The facts. A contract for the sale of the land was declared null and void after the buyer had already paid off the purchase price. May said buyer recover the price paid from the successors and interest of the seller? The hell is yes, because if said successor could recover the land without being required to reimburse the buyer, they would be enriching themselves unjustly at the expense of the buyer. No person shall unjustly enrich himself at the expense of another. The government is not exempted from the application of this doctrine. Hence, if the government has already realized that revenue, which is the object of the imposition of the subject stamp tax, it is not justified to require the payment of the same tax for the same documents. The next is Article 23. Duty to indemnify because of the benefit received. Unless there is a duty to indemnify, unjust enrich will occur. Next is Article 24. In a contractual property or in other relations, when one of the parties is at the advantage on account of his moral defense, ignorance, indigence, mental weakness, tender age, or other handicap, the court must be vigilant for his protection. So, reason for the court protection of the underdog. The law takes great interest in the welfare of the weak and the handicapped. Thus, we have parens patria. Literally, parens patria means father of the parents of his country. In the USA, as in the Philippines, the phrase refers to the sovereign power of the state and the safeguarding the rights of the person under the disabilities such as the insane and the incompetent, thus were the law always to be applied strictly. There would be danger that injustice might arise. The state as a parens patria is under the obligation to minimize the risk to those who, because of their minority, are just yet unable to take care of themselves.
So, good morning everyone. My topic is all about the elements of abuse of rights. So, what is abuse of rights? In civil law jurisdiction, abuse of rights, also known as the prohibition of chicken, is the exercise of legal right only to cause a nuisance, harm, or injury to another. The abuser is liable for the harm caused by their actions. So, here are the elements of the abuse of rights. So first, there is a legal right or duty, meaning as a human being, all of us have a legal right or duty in our perspective life. They're an obligation that must be required to comply. Second, which is exercised in bad faith. Bad faith does not simply cannot but moral judgment or negligence. There must be some dishonest purpose or some moral obligatory unconscious doing of a wrong, breach of sworn duty through some motive or intent or ill will, and for the sole intent of prejudicing or injuring another. So, heard example of abuse of rights. Some examples of these are abuse of power, variety, frivolous or vexation litigation, spite feigns, or house abuse of a process, and etc. So when we say abuse of power, it is a humiliating an employee in front of his colleagues. So ibig sabihin, pinahiya mo yung empleyado mo sa harap ng sa harap ng kasamahan mo. So that's an abuse of power. Next one is frivolous. So it is non-important, not deserving serious attention. So meaning lacking a legal basis or legal merit and matter that has little prospect of success, not reasonable purposeful. So when we say vexation litigations, meaning without reasonable or probable cause or excuse, harassing, annoying, institute maliciously or on the basis of improper motive.
Concept of liability without fault. Concept of liability without fault is a legal principle that holds individuals or organizations responsible for damages without requiring proof or their negligence or wrongdoing. In other words, even if someone did not intend to cause harm or behave in a negligent manner, they can still be held liable for damages caused by their activities or products. This concept is often applied in strict liability cases where the focus is on the dangerous nature of an activity or product rather than the fault of responsible party. Examples include cases involving defective products, hazardous materials, or ultra-hazardous activities like blasting or transporting explosives. The purpose of liability without fault is to provide a means of compensating victims for these losses as well as to incentivize individuals and companies to take greater care in their activities and product development. It also helps distribute the cost of unforeseeable harm more equitably among society as a whole rather than burdening only those who happen to be directly responsible. So the concept of liability without fault refers to a situation where an individual or organization can be held legally responsible for damages or harm caused to another person or property, even if they were not directly at fault of negligent in their actions. This type of liability arises in situations such as strict product liability, where manufacturers are held responsible for defective products that cause harm consumers, and vicarious liability, where employers are responsible for the action of their employees. In such cases, the focus is rather than the fault or intention of the party involved. That's all.
So, Our next topic is all about the rights and liberties under the Civil Code. First, let us discuss the civil rights. Civil rights are those rights detailed in the federal laws and statutes that protects you from the discrimination. As an example of civil rights is the right to be free from employment discrimination based on a protected factors. The example of this is right to vote. Pero ang inin sa right to vote, pwede ni makuha sa imo if makakommit ka ng crime. Next is civil liberties. Civil liberties are freedoms guaranteed to you by Constitution to protect you from the tyranny. One case civil liberty, for an example, is the First Amendment of speech. Example of these also are freedom of religion, freedom of speech, and bias of trials. It means sa imo freedom mag-istorya ng imo sariling opinion and also unbiased trial. Next slide, please. The next is trace and comprehend the history of policing. The first organized police force was in 1712, the Carabineros de Seguridad Pública. Its purpose is to carry out the regulations of the Department of State, and the Carabineros are members of Spanish militia or riflemen. The Royal Decree of December 20, 1992 changed its name into Curfew Carabineros de Seguridad Pública. Next, please. What country first introduced policing system? The first policing organization was created in Egypt in about 3000 BCE. What's that? The empire then was divided into 42 administrative jurisdiction. For each jurisdiction, the Pharaoh appointed an official who was responsible for justice and security. What are the three historical periods of policing? The history of policing in the United States can be divided into three eras of policing: the political era, the reform era, and the community era. Police departments formed in major cities in the United States during the political era of policing, which occurred between 1940 and 1930. Next, please. Who is the father of policing system? The father of policing system is Sir Robert Peel, established the London Metropolitan Police Force. He became known as the father of modern policing, and his commissioners established a list of policing principles that remain as crucial and urgent today as they will 2 centuries ago.
Concept of police service. The old concept called the reactive method. The yardstick of police competence is the increasing number of arrests, throwing offenders in detention facilities rather than trying to prevent them from committing crimes. The general public and governmental perception and the police are performing well whenever they were able to arrest criminal and filing cases against them. So, bali, ang paabot pasabot is kung dabuan na arrest ng mga police officers is ang ila concept is mo decrease and percentage ng crime na nahimo sa isa ka community. Next is the modern concept of police service. Modern concept, or also called as proactive reaction. Police officers are always present not only to perform their respective duties but more importantly
to assure the general public and the government that somebody is available or within the proximity to deter people from committing crime. Bali, ang modern concept is nag-focus sila on decreasing the number of crimes, which is the crime prevention. For example, is patrolling or police patrol. Patrolling is to eliminate the opportunity na maaring gumawa ng krimen ang tao because of the police visibility. Police efficiency is measured by the decreasing number of crimes because of the mere presence of the police that prevents that would be criminals unable to execute their mode of operation. Next is the modern concept of police service. Modern concept, or also called as proactive reaction. Police officers are always present not only to perform their respective duties but more importantly to assure the general public and the government that somebody is available or within the proximity to deter people from committing crime. Bali, ang modern concept is nag-focus sila on decreasing the number of crimes, which is the crime prevention. For example, is patrolling or police patrol. Patrolling is to eliminate the opportunity na maaring gumawa ng krimen ang tao because of the police visibility. Police efficiency is measured by the decreasing number of crimes because of the mere presence of the police that prevents that would be criminals unable to execute their mode of operation.